winter storm has blown through Colorado, depositing several inches of fresh powder on the ground. Conditions like this don't hang around long on the Front Range, and by a lucky circumstance, I have a few free hours to see if I can take advantage of it. So I'm heading down to one of my local hiking areas to see if I can make a few images.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and might I just say, it is cold, it is windy, and the snow is coming down. It is glorious. Storm system came through last night, and we're kind of on the tail end of it now, but still lots of atmospheric in the air, lots of fresh powder. The mountains out there still have that soft feel of the ethereal look that you get during a snowstorm, and I am extremely happy to be getting out and about this afternoon. Got really lucky. I ended up working the morning shift this morning to cover this storm, and so I've had a few hours this afternoon to be able to get out and look for some landscape compositions. I've come out to a local park that I've hiked many times, and I'm just trying to see if I can take advantage of this fresh powder, because I don't get a chance often to get out in these kind of conditions when they're beautifully fresh. So we are taking a few hours and just hoping to find some kind of photo, some type of landscape image. I apologize for breathing really hard. Hiking through snow is not the easiest, but I am very optimistic that I'll at least be able to find an image out here today. I'm hoping that these atmospheric conditions hold for just a little bit longer. I'd hate for it to burn off. The forecast said the snow is supposed to stop somewhere around 5 o'clock. We're still getting tiny flakes coming down. I'm hoping that'll hold for just a little bit longer, a little bit.
You know how they say the first image is usually the hardest image of the day? At least that's how I've heard it said. Anyway, this is the first image of the day. And, you know, this is kind of like an experimental test shot. I'm not really sure if I like it or not. But what I've stopped to photograph, and I'm taking some video on the Fuji to demonstrate to you guys what I'm looking at, is it's this cluster of, it's one pine tree, and then what I'm guessing is a grouping of dead scrub oak, or something along those lines of tree species. And obviously the trees are what kind of caught my attention. I like the grouping and the position of them with that kind of small pine tree there. It's probably a juniper. They like to grow in this kind of terrain. But I like how that little juniper tree is flanked by these leafless, snow-covered, whatever they are. I'm going to say they're scrub oak. That's my best guess. And then what kind of makes this image a little bit more interesting to me is we've got this line of rock right here that's kind of creating an image going from, however you want to view it, from the bottom corner here up through the lower third of the image, and the snow is what creates that line. And you know, again, this is kind of an experimental shot, just kind of trying to get the creative juices flowing out here. I'm probably going to, this is being shot in a 3:2 aspect ratio. I'm probably going to crop this down to either a 4:3 or a 4:5, maybe go 1:1. I'm not sure. I might include some of this brown or yellow grasses down there in the bottom of the frame, if I so choose. I haven't made up my mind about that, but at least that's one shot in the bag, and I'm feeling rather optimistic. I'm going to see if I can get a couple more shots in this afternoon the snow is let up. There's a few tiny flakes flying around, so I'm losing some of the atmosphere. It's still actually, you probably can't see on the action cam here, there's still some atmospherics up there on Cheyenne Mountain, but we're losing it down here. So not quite as ethereal as I was hoping to go for today, but still, fresh powder, cold conditions, usually makes for beautiful photography. So fingers crossed we find another image or two out of this afternoon.
When I took this photo, I really didn't think much of it, but having sat on the shot for a little while, I think that there's more here than I assumed at the time. The lines created by the snow on the rock give the image some structure, as well as providing interest that would have otherwise made me walk past this scene without a second thought.
Well, in the time since I took that first image, I have moved my tripod literally 0 inches. I was packing up and getting ready to head down the trail when I turned my head just a few degrees, and boom, there was another image right in front of me. I had to make a quick change to the camera. I had to put on my long lens here to get in just a little bit tighter. But what we've got now, it's another cluster of trees. I'm starting to turn into, I don't know, Adam Gibbs or Ben Horn, but you know, you got to work with what you've got. But what attracted me to this shot, as you can see on the image I've got here on the other video I've got here on the screen, we've got this tiny cluster of like two some kind of pine trees growing up out of the rocks there. And what really drew my attention to this is, yes, the cluster of trees right there, but what we've got is these diagonal lines cutting through the image of the red rock that is poking out through the snow. And that in itself makes for a much more interesting image than what I got with the previous shot. Remember what I said about the first shot of the trip always being the one to get the experimental juices flowing? Well, there you go. And also, I think it's just being open to what you've got and what's around you. So I'm actually very happy with how this image is. Framed it up as it's a 16:9 vertical on the screen, but I've framed it up as a 1:1 aspect ratio for photo. And I think that's kind of a guide. I may change it to maybe a 4:3 aspect ratio, but I'm betting I'm probably going to leave it as the 1:1. We'll see. But yeah, just it's just a simple image, but there's a lot of detail and a lot of things just going on in it that make it a much more pleasing and much more interesting image. I'm looking up in the tree right here, and I can't tell if that's a hawk or just a giant woodpecker. But that's it's a big bird. He's brave to be out here in this cold right now. So the snow is starting to come in a little bit harder, but it's still tiny, so it's probably not going to show up on the screen very well. But I'm feeling very happy right now. That's 2 images in the span of, I don't know, 30 minutes of being out here. And yeah, very happy right now.
Despite my initial enthusiasm in the field, I've gone back and forth on if I actually like this image or not. The leading lines created by the rocks and the snow are strong and pleasing, and the little trees provide an interesting subject. But I struggle with the fact that there are distractions in the corners of the shot that I can't remove with cropping, which would make the image feel too tight.
All right, well, finding more images is actually proving to be more difficult than I had anticipated. It's gorgeous out here, no doubt about that. And the snow's starting to come back in, so it's starting to feel more atmospheric again. But all that being said, I'm surrounded by scrub oak and snow and not much else. And just from personal experience, scrub oak does not really make for an interesting subject because it is just a cluster of branches. So there is something I might go back to, hike back down the trail, because it's starting to get to starting to get roughly around, I don't know, 3 o'clock. I kind of set myself a cutoff of 4, so I might start turning around here. That being said, I do see something out in the distance here. It could be an interesting subject. I think I'm going to get the long lens back out and take a shot of this. It's going to be interesting to frame this up because there's a bunch of houses lining this hillside up here. And they don't really add anything to the composition. In fact, it'd be very distracting. So yeah, this will be an interesting one.
All right, so this is, again, an experimental shot. I'm not really sure if I like this shot or not, but the rock formation that I'm photographing is very interesting. It looks almost like it's some kind of like tooth, almost like a shark's tooth. So I'm just gonna call this shark tooth rock. Funny? No? Okay, let's just ignore that. Anyway, yeah, what caught my attention with this one is, if I can use my very blurry pointer finger right here. As you can see, this stone rock face, whatever you want to call it, there's it looks jagged and layered, which, you know, that's why it honestly reminds me of a shark's tooth. And my camera battery is about to die, so I need to make this quick. As you can see, it has got like this nice little bend to it, which I think kind of points your eye almost out of the image. And it's in the distance there, so it's got some nice atmospherics to it. Again, the snow's come back in, and it's starting to add a little bit more ethereal feel to the scene. So those elements I really like, and I like all the snow-covered trees out there. I'm shooting this in a 16:9 crop. Just kind of using that as a guide. I'm probably going to crop this down to probably a 4:2, make it like a kind of like a cheater pano, if you will. Again, this is just an experimental shot, but there are elements to it that I like. So, yeah, I might like it, I might hate it. We'll see. It's starting to get a little bit late in the day. My energy levels are starting to drop, so I'm going to hike back down the trail. There is one more image that I want to capture for the day before I call it. So I'm going to pack up here and head back down, and yeah, here's the shot.
Like the first image I took, this shot has grown on me. At the time, I wasn't convinced I actually had a good image, but after editing it and letting it sit for a few days, I think the uniqueness of the rock and the fact that I had more ethereal conditions made this a better shot than I originally felt when shooting.
So one last image to cap off what has been a really fun afternoon of just hiking around in the snow and looking for images. I walked past this composition as I was coming up the trail and kind of going up and around to where I shot the last image. And I saw this little tree, and again, I'm not really sure what it is. It could be a scrub oak all by itself, or it could just be some lonely little tree that I don't know the name to. I really need to get better at knowing the names of trees. Not the point. And I really liked just the way it's growing. It's kind of coming up at a curve and growing out of this bedrock area. And it's framed really nicely against this red wall of stone that's got some weathering to it. And then we've got the snow in the trees and on the ground. And it's a very simple but yet very, very pleasing image. So I couldn't help but stop and take a photo of it. As you can see in this video clip here, we've got some distracting elements kind of off to the right there. This is a little bench that I had to crop out of frame. I shot this as a 1:1. Looking at the video here, I do kind of like this negative space in the video that I've got on the left-hand side of the clip, but it doesn't work with that bench there, and that bench would be a pain in the butt to clone out. So I'm just gonna leave it as the 1:1, and honestly, the 1:1 framing, it just gives it more simplicity, and it's a clear subject. So I decided I was going to come back down here and shoot this after folks kind of left. There was a group of people that were kind of hanging out here. Yeah, and I don't like speaking in public, so gotta wait till the crowd leaves. But very good image. Might be my favorite out of the day, honestly, just because of the simplicity of it. So it is. My stomach is growling, and I'm ready for dinner. So I'm gonna pack up here, and I'm gonna pop the image up on screen. And yeah, I hope you guys like this one. I really like it.
As I progress as a photographer, I find that sometimes the simple image is the better image. This is also an example of how you need the right conditions to make a good image. This lone tree itself is an interesting subject, but I think if it hadn't been for the snow, I would have walked past it without taking a photo, because the red colors would have been the only tone in the image.
All right, it's getting cold, I'm getting hungry, the wind's starting to pick up, and I think it's time to end this video. So I hope you like the images that I got today. I'm really happy with a couple of them. I think they're gonna turn out really good. You have already seen them, so fingers crossed that I like them after editing this video. But guys, I hope that you have enjoyed this video overall. If you have, please guys, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you're subscribed, notification bell, yada, 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 yada. So I'm always terrible at editing these videos, so I'm just gonna head on back to the car, and I will see you all in the next one.